Hi friends, another video on food and nutritional approaches, and I think this is my third one on this, so I spent a lot of time talking about it. And I do because it's where most people get strung up in their journey of health optimization or your weight loss or your activity goal, or maybe you have a chronic disease your doctor tells you and you're trying to attenuate that disease or decrease your risk factor for disease, end stage diseases like cancer or kidney disease. So you can motivate yourself to go work out. There's enough information on the internet for you to come up with your own training plan. As long as you have the motivation and the drive, you can go in the gym. Gyms always have trainers. You can hire a trainer you like. You can get online coaching, and so really, if your ass is too inactive and you really want to do something about it, and you devote the money, you could join a gym, scour the trainers, try them out, find one you like who does stuff you like, and just book him or her out for a year, and you'll have somebody to get you going. But without a diet plan, you're kind of screwed. And the diet plan is tough. And by diet plan, I don't mean starving yourself. I just mean changing your dietary habits to meet your health goals or your activity. Really, it shouldn't need to meet your health goals, but it should need to meet your level of activity goals. You should always be moving and active. That should be the standard. And your food is catching up with that, So the hardest part, because you do it on your own. You come home and you eat. You have cravings. You have to fight that in your head on your own. You have social events, and you have to deal with that on your own when you're out there eating. You have holidays, so it's something that you have to build a psychological plan to deal with the situation as it comes, and you have to have willpower. So I think a lot of people are led to believe you have to be strong and have willpower. But for those of us who've developed some kind of discipline with eating, it's really making some psychological behaviors. And this goes back again to the book called Atomic Changes that I read. And it does cover this particular behavior pattern of just setting yourself up psychologically beforehand and changing things in your life. So you really are not stuck fighting a decision, So today I want to talk about pushing back, and I'll probably title the video this, but I think it probably needs to go out more to people. And it needs to be a thing in this society, and I think it probably needs to be more of discussion. I don't want to say social movement on it, because culturally our society is geared to the opposite, which is not pushing back. And I mean pushing back the plate, food. So we're going to discuss it as pushing back, but and I'll talk about it with food, but it can apply to drugs. So your choice of recreational drugs could be alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, and it could be behavior patterns of things you do in life that may or may not be in alignment with your goals. So it's about pushing back, but just understand that it's pushing back on the things that are going to detract you from your goals. You really need to pull in things like working out, okay? So there are things you need to pull in life, and there are things you need to push back on. And keep in mind, pushback, I'm not saying abstinence. I'm saying you're just finding a balance for things in your life. We're pushing back. We're not pushing back to make you starve. We're actually in a place of overindulgence, and we're pushing back to moderation. So let's talk about food. So I'm from the Caribbean. We don't waste food. Most of us who are relatively close to our ethnic origins. Our families don't waste food because I and one generation above me come from a time when food was very expensive and not easy to get. And in our house, when we were growing up, meat was very expensive. So meat was a luxury, and we never afforded to have tons of meat that people have in their freezer like Costco. We had a family of five, and my mom would buy one or two chickens, cut it up into tiny pieces, curry with stew, and she had to divide it up between three boys and my dad for lunch or dinner for like 3 days. Um, by the time Thursday came, there was no meat in the house, so it had to be vegetarian by default. And then Friday we might just buy food because there wouldn't be anything in the fridge, and Saturday they would do groceries, and that's kind of how we ran. It wasn't perfect, but that's all they could afford. So, um, so when you come from that, and remember, we're in the New World in the Americas. I'm in the U.S., but when you're in the New World, everybody from the New World came from the Old World and had to build the entire continent up, and they had to bring their food, find food, grow food. So if you're in the Americas, you come from a culture and a diaspora of people where food was primed. And so culturally, we don't waste food. We always eat food. It's bad to waste food. Anytime there's food, you eat a lot. And I'm around people of different ethnicities, and we do the same thing. And you don't waste food, you know. So with pushing back, for me, it's okay to stop eating when you're full, even if there's food on the plate, which also means you take what you need. You don't load your plate with a bunch of stuff. You don't order a lot of stuff so it doesn't waste. Um, so as my eating or your eating comes down from a place where you're not checking or paying attention to it to down, you're going to have that point where you take or order food that you know you used to eat before, but you realize, oh my God, I shouldn't eat all of this, or I'm good. So at that point, you're going to be wasting food. But to have this psychological tip to think ahead of time, when you get to where the food is, you can scour and see, okay, here's, I don't know, chicken fried steak. I might probably skip that, but I'll have the beef stew and this. Or you might order food that you know you don't have to push back because you get all your macros and the calories you need right there. I would say also set a limit on your meals. So when I say a limit, if you're tracking your calories and you have a daily macro, you know that your breakfast, your lunch, or your dinner should be X amount of calories. So for me, I try to make my meals 5, maybe 600 calories most. So if I have breakfast, my breakfast is usually light because I work out at 11. So it'll probably be some wheat toast, a couple of eggs, and some fruit, some kind of simple carb. And that's usually it. So breakfast is usually light, but I carry dextrose with me to the gym. Afterwards, when I eat lunch and dinner, I try to make them 500 or 600 calorie meals, but I do have snacks in between. So with that, I know that, okay, 500 to 600 is where you are, and I didn't come up with that arbitrarily. I kind of looked at what I was eating, and at a certain point after 500 or 600, I get very tired. My body slows down. So over 600 calories, my body is saying, when this hits your digestive system, we're going to shut everything down. You're not going to feel like walking. You're not going to feel good. You're going to be too stuffed. You're just going to sit on the couch, and any errands you had to do, you're not going to do. We might need to make space. You got to go to the toilet. Stuff like that. All of which makes me unproductive. And if it's dinner time and I go to sleep with that full belly, I get reflux, and I've worked hard to get my reflux under control, so I don't want to get it back again. But at 500 keeps me satiated and hungry enough for the next meal. So that's where I arrive at that. So once I keep that in my head, I usually only take out what I want. And my body meter is such that if I'm out eating and I get to the 500 calorie mark, assuming I'm not shoving crap down my face, I'll feel it. And at that point is where I push the plate away and say, yeah, I'm done. But when I eat, I get to the sexy shit first. I eat the meat first, I get my vegetables in, and I have my carbs. So if I hit my 600 calorie limit, if I feel like I hit my limit, the meat's gone, right? My meat, my vegetables, my complex carbs are gone, and and if it's a day where I had a great workout and it's not a huge amount of simple carbs, I'll get the simple carbs in, but I don't force it. So that comes now to the cultural part because you feel bad about wasting food. And I notice I eat with my buddy and he doesn't waste food at all. We were actually eating yesterday, and I finished my food, and there was half of a sandwich or something there, and I was like, no, I'm good. He's like, well, I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to eat it. But he was already full. And he had a beer. He ordered a second beer because we were there. And he hadn't finished it. So when I got the check, boom, he chugged it. I'm like, you don't have to chug the beer. He's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to waste it. So there is that cultural battle and pure guilt. And you're going to have to be okay with that. You're going to have to be that guy who's like done eating. And people are going to be like, you're done eating? You can't, come on, there's more food. You're going to have to say it. And eventually, people are going to be okay with it. You're going to have to be okay with the peer pressure and the peer guilt. And that's only temporary. Nobody's going to unfriend you because you're not eating as much or a lot. It may seem that way, but people just want to enjoy the time with you. Especially if you're like me and you're a total food guy and people are accustomed to you just ordering every course, wine and doing all this stuff. The change is hard because people are going to be like, dude, you're done? You're no fun anymore. Yeah, I know. But some of your friends will understand and some won't. And it's okay. Remember what your goal is. So, my coach telling me sprinting killed him too. So, but be okay with it. We all come from a place where we don't want to push back or waste food. But I'm just telling you, it's okay. Get yourself in a habit. If you're out eating, it might be pizza going around and stuff, and you're like, yeah, I'm done, bro. Like if we go me a pizza, I'm only gonna have one or two slices. And to be honest, I can't eat more than that. And people be like, eat more, and I would eat more wings, but you have to. Once you get in the habit of eating your limit for one sitting, and you feel it's there, you got to push it away no matter what. So be okay with pushing back. It's okay. You're not wasting food. We don't live in a time where it's going to be offended. Like I said, don't take more than you can eat. If you take stuff in your plate in somebody's house and you don't finish it and their mom is pissed, that's your fault. And you need to eat it. Don't take more than you can handle, right? And if you're out, food when you're out is very rich. It's okay to stop. If you get your calories, the plate's not done, just stop. The other thing that I do is like I make the best of foods and food choices that I have, or make good food bad. So, for example, okay, this is a big box of fried chicken from Publix. Now, fried chicken is very rich. And sometimes my gut doesn't agree with me this. But sometimes if I'm coming home and I need quick protein, I'll pop in a deli, I'll look for the smoked chicken, I'll look for something, or the people in the deli might be too busy to help me, and I can't wait because I'm starving from my workout, and I need to get home and cook. So it's just easier for me to grab this chicken. Some days I might just want 2 pieces of chicken. I'm not saying I don't eat fried food. I do log my calories. I'll log the fried food, and that hits my fat and carbohydrate macros. I don't eat a ton of it because it's very rich. It also sits on my digestive system. But what I do is I also take the skin off. So when you track your food, you can have fried chicken, skin not eaten, meat only, and it's actually there in the trackers. But a lot of times the fried chicken is usually the most moist chicken. I don't like rotisserie chicken. So I'll just buy this really for the breasts and the legs, and I'll take the skin off the breast, and I'll eat the breast, And I don't keep it long. I won't eat that whole box. I'll be honest with you. I once I hit the breasts and maybe the drumsticks, I'll just throw the rest away because if it sits there, I don't like it stale. And I don't want all the fried chicken all week. Like today, I'm gonna have fried chicken, skinless fried chicken, and that's it. That's one meal. So today I came home after sprinting. I needed food, so I had one drumstick. The other drumstick, I took the skin off, and I had a roll, so simple carbs, and had some fruit after, and oat and honey bar or something. So that gave me enough energy, health, so I could cook because I made a nice big beef soup. So that's how I make the best out of something bad. A lot of times, so some days you might feel for something sweet, and you might say, "Oh, I want to have this ice cream bar." I gotta tell you, first behavior pattern is I don't keep this in the house. If I do, and I have a week where I want it, I'll just finish it and never have it again. But one thing I discovered is if you're fresh from a workout and you're low on sugar and you're craving sweet stuff, fruits actually stop that craving really fast. Watermelon, oranges, an apple, a pear, bananas. I like watermelon. I usually trade in the heat, so it rehydrates me, and pineapple. But I've had times where I've had cookies and I come back home like, let me have a cookie. The problem with cookies or cake is they just give you simple carbs, sugar and fat, but there's no fiber and nutrients in there. So you're always hungry. You put down a cookie bag, you want another cookie. You eat a little bit of the cake, you want more. So, but I've found that fruits with their water content, fiber, and electrolytes, and the electrolytes are key. Because a lot of times when you're having cravings for stuff, it's not as much the glucose you want as it is electrolytes. And once the electrolytes are covered, your body stops sending that alarm for sweet stuff, you know? I learned that when I was doing intermittent fasting. So keep fruits in your fridge, different fruits. Oranges are great for a sweet tooth. Vitamin C, and if you peel and suck one orange or eat a clementine, you're getting fiber as well, 3 to 4 grams. And it's a lot better than pouring a glass of orange juice. I mean, if you juice an orange, you're probably going to get, 2 ounces of juice? 3 ounces of juice? And then when you pour a 12 glass of orange juice, think how much orange is, and there's no pulp or anything in that. Watermelons, pineapple are good. Always have strawberries. Good thing about living in Florida. We have strawberry season, but strawberry is a nice low-calorie way to get a sweet tooth covered. Now, I'm not knocking your ice cream sandwich because ice cream is an interesting dessert. It's your source of dairy, not really the Klondike bar, but ice cream. And I don't know, some studies suggest that people who have a serving of ice cream have a lower incidence of type 2 diabetes. My take on that, without looking at it, just from looking nutritionally, is that if you get a sugar source like cake or cookies, you're constantly in there. If you get ice cream fat source, the fat content blocks your appetite, So you get a serving of ice cream, you're probably not going to be snacking on anything sweet the rest of the day. It probably seals your appetite. Maybe people who have an ice cream habit eat it in the evening after dinner. They have an early dinner, and then they don't eat for a few hours, and they go to bed. So that kind of helps them seal off their eating. They're done, and then they might have 2-3 hours fasted time and then go to bed. They always say try to eat early-ish. Try to finish your last meal early and have a nice long fasted time before you run into bed, so you extend that fasting time. Or if you wake up early, wait a few hours, have coffee before you start eating. So that might be it. I'm not knocking this. This thing is only 180 calories. So some days at the end of the day, if I have calories to spare, like I haven't hit my limit and I can spare it, I'll have, 180 or 70 calorie ice cream bar, or maybe some ice cream. But I have a phase. I just tried that just to see what it was like. But fruits are the king. Now, the whole pushback thing is also applies to other things that you might do in life. So for alcohol, for example, I cut back my drinking a lot. And I only have 1 or 2 drinks in a sitting, and I only try to make that once a week. 2 if 2 is my max. And a lot of times if I'm out with people, I'm okay with pushing back drinks. Cocktails are short, and wine are short pours, so they're usually done. But beer, a trick I do is I always usually get a beer if I don't want to drink. I can sit on a light beer, and time can go by. Because, when you're chatting with people, if your cocktails, they'll ask, do you want another one? So a nice tall beer, 4%, I'll sit on that. And if we're ready to go, I leave the beer, you know. I always feel good after one light beer. But then the problem with cocktails is they can catch up really fast. So that's another thing where if I'm out, I make a choice. I'll have a very light beer, Kirin Light, if I go out for sushi, and I just have one. And I have that one baby me. I don't order anymore. Um, and if I'm there with friends and I happen to get a second one, I'll know you're not finishing this. You know, plus beer fills me up fast. So that's another trick I do to prevent me from getting to that decision. If I was drinking cocktails, I'd have to get to that decision tree. The trick with alcohol, as opposed to food, is alcohol um, decreases your inhibition. So your ability to say no and your willpower is going to be gone. Trust me, this happens to me. And you know, the thing with wine or cocktail is you finish it fast and they get to you faster. So if you're out and you want to only have one drink, and you finish that drink and you don't close out, and somebody's like, Rishi, have another one, or you're gonna end up saying yes, you know. So, and if I have two of those, it does affect my sleep. So, yes, you might lose some friends over your reduction of your alcohol and pushing back on drinking days. Um, so be prepared that your social life and your calendar will slow down. That happened to me, and I had to deal with that. I don't have a social life anymore. My life is not fun. I have to find other things to do. So I started working out more. If I was bored, I work out. I started getting books to read. If I'm home, I'll just watch a movie on Netflix, and I got to be okay with that. And it also showed me how much I would drink when I'm bored and have nothing to do. How much I would go out and be a barfly, and not because I'm meeting people. I might just go to the bar by myself and end up talking to the bartender. So that's going to be a change when you push back on your alcohol. But just remember why you're on your journey. And I'm not saying you don't drink. I'm saying balance is key. So, you know, you get to 2, 3 drinks or cocktails, it affects your sleep. Once your sleep is off, everything else happens. If you're eating when you're out to dinner and you have the second cocktail, you're probably going to be eating more. I mean, if you're drinking. You know, if I have one and a second drink, I won't be able to say no to food and push back on food. So it's a very odd drug in that it drops your willpower and it makes you say yes to everything. So I just don't, you know, and you're talking to a guy who joined a bourbon club, you know, but they have events once a month, and when I go there, I moderate myself. And I do visit my cocktail bar once a week. So the thing is, I think balance is key, because when you practice abstinence, you're away from something that you may have a weakness for. And if in life you come up to it again, you may not be able to defeat it. I think it's nice to have a relationship with it and to face the enemy and know how to deal with the enemy. So I am good about pushing back with food. If I'm out, I'll actively just stop myself at 1 and 2. So I'm not afraid of the alcohol or the food. I can go and moderate myself around there. I am the master of my universe. At least I try to be. So some little tricks you can do is just, hey, one and done. As soon as you order it, put down your card. Or if you're only going to do 2, just close out as fast as you can. So you don't have to wait for the check, and nobody's going to ask you, do you want another? Then once you close off, nobody's going to ask you if you want another. You're already closed off. And you already put it in your mind, I'm leaving. So that's something I do too. So sometimes bartenders will be like, hey, you one and done today. But think of pushing back as I said, pushing back over an indulgent society. You're just pushing back into moderation, because we are in an overindulgent society. Not only do they have a lot more food, but everything seems to be marketed and pushed to the max, and it makes people think they need to go aggro and full retard and 100% on everything. And you've never had to in other generations. You don't have to lift the hardest you can. You don't have to hit the gym every single day and go 100%. You don't have to starve yourself. You don't have to pick a diet that's vegan only, meat only. You can mix it up. You don't have to never have sugar. You can have a little dessert, you know. Just be strong enough where you can have enough to stay within your means and know when to push back. So, you know, I say always minimum effective dose, and if you think of food as a drug, just like alcohol, you control the drug. Don't let the drug control you. And this is a perpetual thing. I'm not speaking from a position of knowing everything. I have to employ this all the time, you know. So for a while, I just didn't go out anywhere drinking, and my social life kind of dropped. And people were like, "Where's Rishi?" And you know, that kind of thing. And I realized, you know, if you're out, you need to have social time with people because social relationships are important. So nobody's saying you shouldn't have one. People want you to come out, but they're not saying you need to cross your limits. So the problem really is you. You need to control yourself. So, and then this push and back thing applies to everything else. You know, we need to moderate our sleep. So, you know, I would stay up late at night on the computer. I would watch movies late at night. That, you know, when I finished everything, and you know, I had apps of games on the phone or Instagram, and I realized those things would keep me up. And just being in this blue light, this phone screen light, when I went to bed, I would just be staring like I couldn't go to bed. So I took all these apps off my phone, and the one thing that catches me is Facebook Shorts or YouTube Shorts. But, you know, I have to constantly remind myself to just watch that for only 15 minutes and get off, but because you can get hit in bunny trails with it. But, you know, those things I stop so I can get to bed quicker. So I push back on a lot of those things, and I switch over to reading. Another thing you can do is play a musical instrument before you go to bed. So those are other psychological replacements that you can use. So those are my tips for eating. Push back into moderation, and be okay with that. You know, be okay with the person who eats what they needs in the plate, and then you're done. And the same thing with drinking. So yes, it's kind of a bit of a shock. I'm out with my friends. I don't really dig in and have all the appetizers. I eat my food. Instead of just getting like the chicken fried steak, I'm like, I'll have the salmon today, and I'll sit on one drink, you know, and people are like, that's all you're drinking? But when that happens, you're usually call it a night. So just be prepared when you do that. You know, when you're drinking, you can stay up till 10, 11, 12. When you're drinking soda, you're pacing yourself, and you're done at 1 or 2, you know, once that alcohol starts burning off and the depressant effect kicked in, you're going to be tired. So you're going to be like, all right, guys, I got to take off. So it's a bit of a change when you're changing your vices for your health. But, you know, your social life just moves into other places. So for me, it's active and athletic people. I kind of spend a lot more time with them. So it's just a change, you know, and life is a flux, a circle. So you may end up with your other friends in a different incarnation as a different person, as a light drinker instead of a heavy drinker, as you know, a guy who eats moderately. And if you think back at your time when you were indulgent, you had friends who ate very moderately, and now you're one of those persons. You know, I had a girlfriend she ate everything, but she was very moderate, small portions, walked a lot, and now I see why. So, okay, this is a long one, but I just wanted to have a little podcast on not being afraid to push back on food, push back on things, and hey, if people give you shit for it, I'll be your friend. Don't worry.